Right, now I'm curious as to what we can do with it other than just eat it as a chunk. Jockey, what have you got for me?
I think you can get very experimental with the blue cheese, and you can use it as a seasoning, like in chili con carne. Just add a bit of blue cheese in there, and it just gives it that kind of savoury cheesy note. And then also we have to do it with get some butter. If you get some butter and slice the butter and slice the blue cheese the same thickness, and then stack them all together, wrap it up, put it back into the fridge. And what will happen is that flavour of that blue cheese will go onto the butter because it's fat and absorb all that flavour. Leave it there for like 4 or 5 days, and then you can remove the butter and then use that butter to finish off your steak when you're cooking the steak, because
there's always a moment when you know that the audience is the right audience, and when they start making voluntary noises.
I love it. And then, so what you do is you use that butter to finish your steak, because there's a flavour profile in each steak.
It's the sharpness. It works so well.
What's the funk, right? Blue cheese.
Yeah.
I love it. You're talking with this huge thing. I'd just like to get the visuals over. Let's take a question on blue cheese from Alex O'Dwyer from Netherby.
Hi panel, I absolutely love blue cheese. But other than spinach, which vegetable would you pair it with? And perhaps the killer question, does it ever have a place in cauliflower cheese?
Right, so that is a very good question. Melek?
I love the combination of walnut, blue cheese and dates, and I think you can use that you can make a burek with it. You can stuff, phyllo pastry with dates, walnuts and blue cheese, or you can make a cornbread, pan fry some dates or walnuts and butter, and then crumble in some blue cheese right at the end, and then pour that on top of a cornbread and then bake it. But I would even just stuff the date with walnut and blue cheese and then bake it in the oven like that. And if you want to go non-halal, you can wrap it in prosciutto if you want.
It comes slightly off the vegetable agenda there. Melissa?
I think it goes really well with brassicas, especially kind of whether it's like roasted broccoli with some blue cheese on top, or in soups, I think. And I think with broccoli it goes really well with soup. With cauliflower, and I definitely do think it has a place in cauliflower cheese, but I would still have a general base of like other cheeses, and then I have dots of blue cheese. So I think when you use blue cheese in great quantities, it can almost become a bit jarring, and it almost like loses, you get a bit overwhelmed by blue cheese. So in the cauliflower cheese, I'd kind of like dot it around.
Selena?
Well, sweet and savoury works with blue cheese, so I would go for a pear tarte tatin. So you basically fry off your pears, as you would with an apple tarte tatin. But you glaze it with some honey, rosemary, and then scatter the blue cheese over, pop the pastry over, and then bake it, flip it over. I know it sounds quick, but labour over it because it's going to smell delicious. But you can make the mini version, so just get your puff pastry and place them over a little tray of the pear and the rosemary and blue cheese and honey. Bake them until lovely and crispy and then flip them over.
Alex, I hope that gives you a few ideas.
Absolutely delicious. And when can we go out to the shops and buy the dehydrated? That seems to be an essential piece of kit.
Right, our next question, Christopher Parker from Bridport.
Hi, we've just had 20 quail eggs hatch. By my calculation, they should be fairly plump by midsummer. Does the team have a favourite quail recipe?
How do you happen to have 20?
We've got an incubator.
All right, okay. Melek?
I love Vietnamese style char-grilled quail, where it's dry rubbed in an allspice, so there's a slight sweetness to it, and then it's just served with salt, pepper and lime juice. So you dip the quail meat in the salt, pepper, lime juice before you have it, so you've got the sweetness and then the acidity and the saltiness. It's great.
Melissa?
I'm going to go for a KFQ, sort of southern fried quail. It blends itself really well. So it's really good, honestly. And also, because they're quite small, you can eat a whole one to yourself. And I'd marinate it in like a bit of buttermilk, I'd get some spices in there, so a bit of paprika, a bit of thyme, salt and pepper, maybe a bit of lemon pepper, a bit of celery salt, leave it in there for like, kind of maybe 4 hours to overnight, and then dredge it in a seasoned flour and fry it with a lid, so it kind of steams, and then take the lid off for the last little bit, so it gets nice and crispy, and it's just juicy and it's delicious.
Jockey, I'm sure you've got something straightforward and simple for us.
I'll try and keep this a bit simple and straightforward for you, but I would make a stuffing first of all, just by standard sausage meat, and then season with some chorizo, some preserved lemon, some sage and thyme, and then I'll go and remove the wishbone. And because it's such a small and delicate bird, I'll use my fingers to kind of ease the meat away from the rib cage and the central cavity. And you can just push that skin and flesh all the way back. And then you can remove the central cavity of the quail, and then you'll be left with this like void space. Then you can put the stuffing in, wrap around, and you just simply roast it. And then what you'll have a beautifully cooked roast quail that's stuffed and it's evenly cooked.
And Christopher, if you do bone out a quail, please take a picture and email it to us at tkc.co.uk.
I think life may be too short.
Let's take our next question from Angus Cowan from Bridport.
Are you for or against menus that favour a 3-word description? For example, nettle, yolk, smoke. Or do you like to know a bit more?
Jockey, you've written an awful lot of menus in your time. Is more, is less more?
I'm definitely against, just like I'm against small plate restaurants as well. I'm against that because I want to read a little bit more of what is actually going to be coming to me. I don't want too much of the surprise, but I want to be enticed and get my saliva going and get the juices going and work out what I'm going to have, and then I'll have the surprise when the plate comes and I can pick the bits that I can see that's been written about before. So I'm against.
So you're against very short menu descriptions. Melek, what's your position?
I love a menu that has photos.
So it doesn't matter how many words it's got, if it's got a photo, you know where you're at. Melissa?
Oh, I love a bit of intrigue, yeah, so the less on the menu the better, because unless they were to just serve you those 3 things, presumably there's some other little bits to it. I'd be disappointed if it was just those 3 things, but that surprised me, how are they all going to come together, in what quantities, It's almost like when you go to watch a film and you've just seen the trailer, and you almost forget there's like a whole film apart from those 3 major events in the trailer that they've shown you about. I love it, like it's just like a revelation.
Shalina, you have a restaurant. How long are the menu descriptions?
They were very, very long. I no longer have the restaurant. But I'm a single mum to a 7-year-old, so when I go out, I do not have the energy to consume lots of words. 3 letters, 3 words, that's absolutely fine. But I love the mystery and I love the exploration of food, and I think that's the whole fun part when you eventually do go out to a nice restaurant. It's the experience, and I think picking a menu that you don't quite know is part of the fun.
Angus, do you like them short or would you prefer them longer?
This question came from a silly Instagram video that I watched about a joke restaurant starting, and they were just throwing out ridiculous ideas, and it was about the menu. But I prefer a bit more description, I think.
I think I saw that video. Yes, it was funny. Yeah. You're listening to The Kitchen Cabinet. Today in Bridport, we've already enjoyed Dorset cheese, but now we must move to another Dorset delight that apparently goes very well with Blue Vinny. You may or may not have heard of Dorset knobs. They are small bread rolls, baked hard all the way through, with more of a biscuit texture than bread. They are slightly sweet and best served with butter or cheese. And in the old days, they were sometimes dunked into cups of tea. There also exists a Dorset Knob Throwing Festival, where competitors are challenged to throw Dorset knobs as far as they can. Other events include knob painting, a knob and spoon race, guess the way to the big knob down, and so on. I have given those members of the panel a knob, and they're going to throw them. As we run the risk of giving audience members a black eye, this is going to be more like a gentle catching competition. So on the count of 3, if you could all be ready to catch one, Not too hard, please, panel.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, go.
Oh, yay, well done.
Lady in the gold dress, if you want to come up, we have some Dorset knobs with blue cheese for you to try. So, have you eaten Dorset knobs before?
I've had one.
And what did you think of it then?
Nearly broke my tooth.
Did it? All right. Well, if you want to try it with the blue Vinny, we'll be delighted to see if you think. Okay, we can try that before. Never. Oh.
I don't live in Dorset, I live in Devon.
Oh, really? Ladies and gentlemen, it's the 21st century. People are allowed to leave their Any thoughts? They are quite dry.
Oh, very.
What we're going to do is anyway, thank you very much for volunteering to come along. Panel, you've been trying the Dorset knobs. I'm going to ask you, Melissa, because your mouth is absolutely full, this is the right moment to ask you a question. How are you? Melissa said really good. Melissa, have you got a mouthful? You're all right.
They're not mouthful, brother.
Are you saying they're more a vessel for the thing that goes across them?
Yeah, so they work well, really well.
I'm more in favour of the water biscuit. I like those, but also being Scottish, I do like milk cake. I think milk cakes are delicious, Moorish, and can withstand quite a topping.
Selena, are you a fan of cake?
Yes, and always a fan of the standard cream crackers. I think that is the baseline for any good cracker for me.
Mel, I'm always interested in sort of the immigrant experience. So were crackers a part of growing up?
Mum used to get a biscuit tins for the tin to fill it with other things like sewing kits and everything. But you know, when they were initially bought and you get all the different things, sometimes I was like really confused why the crackers in there. A cream cracker is like not creamy. This is dry as a nut, isn't it?
And if you just tuned in and you're wondering, are they really talking about cracker preferences on the kitchen cabinet? Then yes, we are, and it's very important. Let's take a question on crackers from Madeleine Poulton from Britain.
Yes, hello. I get given those assorted boxes of crackers at the local community kitchen and have to think of things to make from them. Can you make any suggestions?
Right, so we want creative cookery crackers.
There is a Mauritian concept which is very useful. You do use fine vegetable, and it's a chayote squash, so it's a very, very light squash. It looks like a very, very large one.
Just a quick question, can you substitute for the
Yes, actually you could. You could squash, butternut squash perhaps would work really well. So you layer it if you're making like a dough for us, pour over some cream, have some butter, and then you're going to top it with a lovely sandwich on top, and bake it in the oven with some beautiful butter.
Listen.
So I've got a whole season making heritage and working. Maybe a little bit of sliced boiled egg, and that can be a little canopy hors d'oeuvre with little plates of fruit. And then I'll go for a sweet nose and report with locusts.
not going to judge.
What I would do with it, it sounds gross, but it's actually delicious. I think it's snappy jelly. We make like a warm snappy jelly. Like it's 200 grams of water, 5 grams of cold agar, 300 grams of
Hello, Russell Kane here. I'm back for another season of Character Assassinating the Night Sky and picking up the baddies in evil genius. Yeah, even the biggest legends have their skeletons. So join me and a panel of brilliant comedians to weigh in on whether the biggest players in history are more evil or more genius.
I just think every celebrity is out of their mind. Evil Genius with Russell Kane. Listen first on BBC Sounds. After the news, the Labour peer and former Home Secretary David Blunkett dissects the government's immigration white paper. And Cabinet MPs save public libraries. The week in Westminster is in a couple of minutes.
BBC News at 11 o'clock. The UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called for a permanent and immediate ceasefire in Gaza after Israel announced a new offensive. He said he was alarmed at reports that Israel was planning to expand operations. The Israeli government says it's aiming to dismantle Hamas. 250 people have died in Gaza since Thursday, according to the Hamas One Health Authority. The British surgeon, Dr. Victoria Rose, is working at a hospital in Khan Yunis. She says the conflict and 10-week aid blockade is taking its toll on children.
The main thing that we're seeing is the malnutrition. The children are really, really thin. We've got a lot of, youngsters whose teeth have fallen out. One of my colleagues' daughters was 2-year-old and her hair is thinning. They really are in the worst condition I've ever seen them, and that makes it so difficult for us because a lot of them have quite significant burn injuries.
Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has accused President Trump of lying about using power to seek peace in Gaza, saying the US must leave the region. His speech follows a whirlwind tour of some Middle Eastern capitals by Mr. Trump. 3 Iranian men living in London have been charged under the National Security Act. They're accused of engaging in conduct likely to assist the Iranian Foreign Intelligence Service between August and February. The Kremlin has said that a meeting between Ukraine's President Zelensky and Russia's Vladimir Putin could happen, but only if certain agreements are met. The Ukrainian military says a Russian drone strike has hit a civilian bus in the northeast of the country, killing at least 9 people. More details have been released about the 3 people, including 2 firefighters, who died tackling a large fire at a former RAF base in Bicester in Oxfordshire. Fire chiefs said Martin Sadler, who worked for the Oxfordshire service, exemplified courage. The firefighter Jenny Logan, who was also a member of Bristol Rugby Club, which said she would be massively missed. David Chester was described as a pillar of the business community in Bristol. BBC News.
As the situation in Gaza deteriorates, Fergal Keane brings us a personal story. In half an hour here on Radio 4, he accompanies 2 young cancer patients being evacuated to Jordan for treatment.
And what do the locals make of the new access fee brought in for tourists entering Venice? It was meant to bring much needed revenue, but there've been mixed reviews. That's all in from our own correspondent at 5:30. Now, then, here's the Daily Telegraph's Ben Riley Smith with the week in Westminster.
This week, the main political parties were still working out how to respond to a bruising set of local election results. It was the government that sought to seize the initiative, the Sir Keir Starmer finally unveiling his long-awaited plan for reducing the white paper published on Monday was packed with proposals. There were stricter requirements for speaking English, a looming ban on social care jobs, and 11 universities recruiting volunteers. It was what the Prime Minister said in his speech about migration, as much as the policy specifics, would not
these rules become even more difficult. Without them, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together.
We heard a nod to the 2000th century rivers of blood speech, but so said number 10, others joystick surging support for reform against tough line. Among them was party leader Nigel Farage, who rose to speak and thank his listeners.
We at Reform, a party that is alive and kicking, very much enjoyed your speech on Monday. You should be learning a very great deal from us.
The new efforts to drag down net migration, which peaked at 900,000 a year under the Tories, split Labour MPs, not the first crack to emerge since the local elections. To discuss the changes, I brought together two well-known figures. The Business Secretary under Tony Blair, the MP Diane Abbott, the prominent person of Party's left, Shanghai government office. I began by asking you what the people Reform's popularity triggered.
No, I don't. But we all need to be relevant voices because this is an incendiary area. We're not dealing with anything entirely new here, but we're dealing with the nuance, which makes it possible to take tough measures when we need to, maintain some sensibility about us having a labour market, and being able to deal with integration and social cohesion. Those are really difficult balances.
Diane, do you think it's the Reform popularity surge that explains what happened this week?
It is all about reform. I think people were panicked by Reform in their monkey. And also there are about 90 seats where Reform is second, and most of those seats are Labour. So we're very sensitive to reform.
And Diane, language. The Prime Minister's Tom criticism using that phrase, island mixture. Do you think that's fair? Do you have concerns about that?
Language is not